There is something haunting about the faces of people who've spent 10, 20, or 30 years working as a journalist and are now seeing it all go away. In some cases, the newspaper is shutting down.
Nothing you did, you all did everything right.
In others, they're abandoning the print side for an online version with a much smaller staff. This is all happening in the middle of an economic crisis. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs. The federal government is using billions to bail out banks and auto companies, and the stock market has plummeted to levels not seen in decades. So why, you might ask, are we worrying about a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, journalists losing their jobs? Well, what's happening to this industry is an example of something much bigger. By looking at what's happening to it, there might be some lessons for all of us. I've been showing examples from the newspaper side of the business because that's where the most dramatic changes are happening right now. But radio and TV newsrooms are not immune. They've had job losses too. In the category of full disclosure, I should let you know that I'm a working television news journalist, and I've been in the business for about 30 years. I'm currently employed by a branch of NBC News in the affiliate services branch. I have a lot of friends who are print journalists and friends who are journalism professors. And many of us are finding the changes that are happening in the business right now a little scary. And we're asking a lot of questions. Are we getting the right skills so that we can survive in years to come? Are we teaching students the right things so that they can get jobs in the future? And the big question, what will it all look like in 10 years? So as part of my master's in journalism, I'm trying to figure out how the internet is changing the way we look for and get news and information, and what that means for journalists today and the students who hope to be journalists in the future. In this package, I'll share some of my findings with you. The first stop is to a place between the U.S. Capitol and the White House, along Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. It's called the Newseum. It's a grand facility that houses memorabilia from a bygone era of news, and has experts like Paul Sparrow, a vice president for broadcasting and education, looking at what is happening to the industry today.
The news industry has been impacted by the internet the same way almost every industry has, which is that it has fundamentally changed the way that you communicate with your customers. Now, in terms of the news business, it was always essentially a lecture-based media. In other words, whether you were the editor of a newspaper or the executive producer of a television news program, a small group of people decided what was today's news, and they made a television show or they made a newspaper and they put it out, and you as the viewer or the reader were expected to just accept it, that this was what they decided was the news. The internet has changed that, and so that now it really has to be much more of a conversation. You can present what you think is news to the public, and they're going to tell you what they think. And they may disagree with some of your decisions. They may disagree with your interpretation of some of those decisions. They may have their own ideas that they think are better. And that really fundamental shift in the relationship between media and consumer is the biggest single impact they've had on the content side of the news business.
That fundamental change of people not just being viewers and readers of news, but collaborating customers, is also a topic studied by researchers for the Pew Foundation's Project for Excellence in Journalism. Tom Rosenstiel is its founder and director.
Well, the internet has empowered the consumer. We are in an on-demand news culture now. People get news when they want it, and they get the news they want. This is a dramatic shift from even 10 years ago, and it means that the journalist is now less producing a static product than they are offering a service. How can I help you, the news consumer, find what you want?
But that's not the only change being felt because of the internet. The main reason for newspapers shutting down and radio and television laying people off is money.
American newspapers make 80% of their revenue from advertising. American television, broadcast television, makes 100% of its revenue from advertising. That advertising model was the economic foundation of journalism in the United States for the last century. That model is crumbling away.
Things that were critical to the economic well-being of newspapers, classified advertising, full-page ads, things like that, have been distributed across the internet now. So something like Craigslist or Monster.com are now providing a service that the newspapers used to be able to charge for. When you combine that with an economic collapse, to your primary advertisers like financial companies and automobiles and department stores have cut back on their advertising. It's created a real challenge to the news business on how they're going to support their very, very expensive newsrooms.
The easiest way to support those expensive newsrooms is to make them more cost efficient, reduce the number of people employed there, and have the ones who are left do more than one job. This is where Mojos, mobile journalists for newspapers, and digital or video journalists for TV come into play. NBC Nightly News hired its first digital journalist in late 2007, and they say she is the first of this new breed of journalist working for a network news organization.
Mara Schiavocampo, NBC News, Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
Mara Schiavocampo, NBC News, Dayton, Ohio.
And is that common here in Japan?
And although it has changed a bit recently, when this 29-year-old started, she was the reporter, photographer, writer, and digital video editor for all of her stories. Most were running on the NBC Nightly News website. But once in a while, she'd get a piece on the network's evening newscast with anchor Brian Williams.
Digital correspondent. What it means is this: a digital camera, just Mara, no producer, no camera crew, traveling the world and the nation, looking for news for both our website, nightly.msnbc.com, and Nightly News.
You asked me, you said, are you the only one? And my answer was, for now. Because it's clear that, you know, this is a business. If the business doesn't survive, we're all out of a job. And so people are going to have to take on new skills, and people are going to have to kind of, you know, work in different and new ways just to meet the new realities of the industry.
How are you received by the people who still go out with crews of at least 2 or 3 people?
Everybody here has been wonderful. I mean, people are really curious about the way that I'm working. You know, people ask a lot of questions. People have been very supportive. I've gotten all of the technical and editorial support that I've needed here. So if people have an issue with kind of the new workflow, it's never been addressed to me as a personal matter. You know, of course, there are people who have concerns about quality. People have concerns about jobs. You know, if you're doing 4 people's jobs, what does that mean for the people who have those jobs? So those concerns are there, and they're very valid, and that's something that the industry has to work through.
When you look at this tape of Mara working in the field, you might not think, oh, that's a network news crew. But it's exactly what NBC hopes to have more of. And the network is working with the New York Film Academy to train students in the digital journalism field. Marion Porges is a senior producer at NBC, and she also manages this program.
We don't have the money anymore for people to only have one skill. You're still going to have people who are much better producers than editors, and some people who are much better writers than shooters. But what everyone is having to learn, what we're being forced to learn, and this is one of the reasons actually NBC is teaching this journalism program, is we're being forced to learn to incorporate all of those skills and have everyone be able to be more, basically get more done.